first of all say thank you to all of you who came today to remember and celebrate Phil. The amount of people who are here is a testament to how many lives he touched. Today we'll have four people and Maura speaking to you all. We all loved Phil dearly. And then it'll be followed by some musical reflection. We then hope you'll mingle, grab a bite to eat, and make sure to fill out the guest book with your favorite memories of Phil. Just so you know, there is another celebration at 8 o'clock tonight at the Fox Cabaret for 19 and older, celebrating Phil as well. I can't believe I'm standing here today saying goodbye to my little brother. Phil was born on August 12, 1971, the youngest child of my mom, Enid Western, and my late stepdad, Dick Western. Phil was the youngest of 10. He was also a proud and loving dad to my beautiful niece, Maura. Phil loved music from a very young age, as I'm sure you can see on some of the pictures. I can remember him rocking back and forth at about age 2, 3, 4 on our orange shag rug in the living room, knees bent behind him with some old 70s headphones on, listening to the Guess Who, These Eyes, and laughing. Later on, when we were in elementary school, Barky and I formed an impromptu neighborhood group, karaoke group, performing Leo Sayer songs for the neighborhood kids. Phil was Leo Sayer, and Barb and I were the backup singers. We thought we were pretty great. Phil was always a big personality, marching to the beat of his own drumming, pun intended. I remember when he was about 3, my mom and stepdad had brought him home a toy red Jaguar from their recent vacation in San Francisco. It was the kind you could ride in and pedal around. He loved that car, driving it around our street and driveway, parking it like a real car at the curb, until the day he left it parked at the curb, in the exact spot the garbage got picked up. And the garbage trucks took it away. He was devastated. Phil was also a wanderer. It was hard to keep him in one place. When he was about 2, my mom would let him play in the backyard, but he could always figure a way out, whether it was a hole in the fence or climbing through the gate, over the gate, anything to go walk about. One day he got out and off he went. Mom was frantic, and then she got a call from the police. They had picked him up, strolling down a nearby street, bottle hanging out of his mouth, not a care in the world. When my mom picked him up at the police station, he was having a grand old time, playing with the jail keys, not at all concerned. Phil also had big ambitions. One day we were at McDonald's for dinner. Phil loved McDonald's as a kid, always ordering a hamburger, plain with ketchup, fries, and a Coke. That changed once he had Maura. We were about 4, he was about 4, Barb was about 7, I was about 10. Barb and I were telling my mom what we wanted to be when we grew up, things like veterinarian, nurse, teacher, etc. We turned to Phil and asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he piped up loud and full of confidence, "A robber!" We all laughed until we cried. We thought that was pretty funny. When Phil was a little older, about 10 or so, I was often tasked, as the older sister often is, to babysit him and Barb. One summer day, I was 16, and I planned to go with my friends to Gambier Island. A friend of ours had a boat, and we were going to go barbecue and swim and suntan. Unfortunately, I had to babysit that day, but Mom said I could bring Barb and Phil with me. I probably wasn't thrilled, but it was better than not going. So off we went on a beautiful sunny morning to enjoy the water and the weather. Phil was an interesting character as a preteen. He hated cigarettes and he hated swearing. So he proceeded to count every swear word that came out of the mouths of my friends. Remember, we were all 16 or 17 years old at the time. He was counting a lot. When we got to Gambier, we set up a barbecue. We were making hot dogs and hamburgers. We went swimming, hung out on the dock. A few of my friends were smokers, and while they were doing other things, Phil decided to take every cigarette that anyone had brought and break them into pieces. Let's just say that I wasn't welcome to bring Phil on any more outings with my friends after that. But as much as Phil could be the annoying little brother, he was also very caring and loving. I remember cutting my hand washing dishes one afternoon, and he was the one who came running and went and got help from a neighbor's mom, since our mom was at work. He was the kid who brought home stray animals, a bird, a turtle, a lizard, or a puppy. As a kid, I remember clearly how Phil loved Lego, was obsessed with his Light Bright, and loved the Queen album, News of the World. He was funny with that trademark smile and giggle that he always had. He was sarcastic with a quick wit that could always make you laugh. As most of you know, Phil struggled with addiction for over 20 years. And although this addiction had a huge effect on his life and those close to him, he also was incredibly talented and successful, with a passion for music and a creativity that was beyond compare. Siblings love each other regardless of their paths. They guide each other when they've fallen and are each other's shoulders to lean on. But I had distanced myself from Phil's addiction, although we always saw each other at family get-togethers, and it was always like we'd never been apart. But in November, we reconnected, and we had been messaging, texting, and talking on the phone a lot. It's the one bright spot in this horrible tragedy that keeps me going. I just want to finish by saying, I miss you, Phil. I am so sad that you are not here, and I will hold you, my baby brother, in my heart forever. I will always see your infectious smile and hear that adorable giggle that you had, as I hope everyone here will. I'd just like to end with this poem. Don't think of him as gone away. His journey's just begun. Life holds so many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrows and the tears in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched, for nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Phil's daughter, Maura, has something to say.
These are drawings about my dad. My dad was funny. These are drawings about my dad. My dad was a funny artist. He inspired me to make art. My dad and I walked a lot. I will miss walking with my dad. I miss my dad very much and love his
Now I'd like to introduce Jamie, longtime friend of Phil and family.
Hello, my name is Jamie. I'm a friend of Phil's. Enid and Glenn, Sean and Barb and Maura, my sincerest condolences to you and to all of Phil's extended family. With Phil's passing, we have all had to say goodbye to a very dear person. I'm grateful to have been asked to say a few words here today. Thank you, Enid, for asking me. It's an honor to speak for a few minutes about my friendship with Phil at this celebration of his life. I met Phil in 1996. I met him through some mutual friends that I was working on a recording with at the time. It was so obvious that Phil was not only a very talented musician, a great drummer and a great bass player, but also that he was a very skilled recording engineer and creator of electronic music, and so adept at programming all of the various synthesizers, sequencers, and drum machines involved. If he liked a piece of equipment and wanted to get a sound out of it, he could make it work for him in ways that were unique and very expressive. He had a tremendous ability to make a lot of different pieces of gear work together, resulting in so much beautiful and compelling music over his life's work. To me, this is a very great accomplishment, and I feel it says an awful lot about Phil. A person of great intelligence and of equally great sensitivity. I believe that one does not get to the level of ability that Phil achieved without a deep and sincere love of music and a very deep desire to communicate and connect with other people. I admired and respected him and his musicianship greatly. I feel very fortunate to have been Phil's friend ever since meeting him in 1996. And I've always found it very easy to be Phil's friend. I found him so lovable and affable. I will always be grateful to him for sharing his incredible love of music with me. We worked together on a few recordings over the years. We played some live shows together, and he invited me to play on some tracks at his studio on occasion, which was always great. Many of my closest friends are also some of Phil's closest friends. We all loved Phil very much, and he was such an important person in our lives. I've asked a few of these friends if I could share some of their thoughts with you today. Dave Bricker. Phil was a massive and lovable yenta who had a capacity to talk, understand, and interpret any thought, feeling, or fears that I had about anything, often with great insight. He was incredibly open and honest about his own experience as a person, very passionate about his own work, and had great interest and insight into art and the human condition in general. He appreciated humor and had a great sense of it himself. A great dad to Maura. I think she's got a lot of him in her. An incredibly close friend. We always had great simpatico and shared many similar feelings and thoughts. Totally irreplaceable, and a huge gap in my life that is felt on a daily, even hourly basis. Carl Prévost. Phil, a brother, trudging a similar path, seeking for meaning and where we fit in this life. We met through mutual friends. He asked me to help him find the ever-elusive sobriety, how we would do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing our own souls. What I remember most is long talks over coffee, cigarettes, and nicotine gum. In regards to spirituality, culture, and travel, sharing our fears, poor choices, unhealthy relationships, dark humor, and laughter. We discussed how much joy he found in helping others heal and find their way, sharing with passion his experience, strength, and hope. Phil will always be a part of my soul. Ronan Boyle. I can't quite remember when I met Phil, but we became good friends in recovery and started spending more time together when our daughters were born weeks apart. We hung out a lot with the girls, watching them learn to crawl and walk and talk and play, laughing the whole time. There was always laughter when we were together, almost none of which I can share in polite company. We also had endless conversations about life. Phil was among a precious few that I disclosed everything to, and whom I could count on when I was in pain. My eldest daughter, Frances, called Phil a lovely man, and Odessa was comfortable enough with him to cuddle when we all watched movies at my home. He was family to me. Phil and Maura will always be family to me, and I will always remember Phil with a smile on his face. Late last fall, Phil and I drove down to Seattle to see a My Bloody Valentine show. We are both very big fans of the band, and we would not be disappointed. It was a fantastic show, and we had such a great day together. It was music in the car all the way down to Seattle, then a really great performance from the band, and then it was music all the way back home. Music and laughter. Laughter because we turned the drive home into an extended guilty pleasures playlist. And we got into tons of horrendous stuff. I was doing the driving, so Phil, of course, was the DJ. Phil's love of music was not only reserved for the ambient, the obscure collectibles, and the avant-garde. He also loved his Steely Dan, his Fleetwood Mac, and he even loved his Doobie Brothers. He knew all the words. Love of music was always at the center of our friendship and much of our time spent together. But there were also many long talks over the years about life itself and the very difficult and painful challenges that we all face at certain times. Phil and I would help each other get through those difficult times as best we could. And we talked a lot about life's incredible beauty too, and its awesome and humbling complexity. In January of this year, I got a text from Phil asking me if I would like to work with him on some new songs that he'd been writing. Yes, of course, I said. What a great feeling it is when someone you admire asks you to work with them. He sent me a demo of one song in particular, and it was really good. We met and talked about the best way to record it, and we came up with a plan. We were really looking forward to working on that. About a week before Phil's passing, he and I exchanged some texts, trying to find some time to get together. He said he had planned a trip to Europe, and that we should try to have a visit before he left town in about a week. A few busy days passed by, and it crossed my mind that I should give him a shout, as his departure for Europe was now only a couple of days away. I texted him a link to a song, as I often did, to say hello. This time it was a John Lennon song called Number 9 Dream, and it's a very beautiful song. Phil and I shared a great admiration for the John Lennon solo records. In fact, we had listened to some Lennon songs on that drive down to Seattle. Right after I sent the link, I texted him some of the lyrics from the song. So long ago, was it in a dream? Was it just a dream? I know, yes I know, it seemed so very real. It seemed so real to me. Dream, dream away, with magic in the air. Was magic in the air? I believe yes. I believe. More I cannot say. What more can I say? Thank you, Enid. Very best wishes to you all. Now I'd like to invite Alan to say a few words.
Thank you, Jamie.
I'm Bart, who shortly so Phil is my brother-in-law. I'm just going to read a poem for you called For Grief, a blessing by John O'Donoghue. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you gets fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure, and some dead echo drags your voice down, where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss. And though this loss has wounded others too, no one knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence deepens. Flickers of guilt kindle regret for all that is left unsaid or undone. There are days when you wake up happy, again inside the fullness of life, until the moment breaks and you are thrown back onto that black tide of loss. Days when you have your heart back, you are able to function well until in the middle of work or encounter, suddenly, with no warning, you're ambushed by grief. It becomes hard to trust yourself. All you can depend on now is that sorrow will remain faithful to itself. More than you, it knows its way and will find the right time to pull and pull the rope of grief until that coiled hill of tears has reduced to its last drop. Gradually, you will learn acquaintance with the invisible form of your departed, and when the work of grief is done, the wound of loss will heal, and you will have learned to wean your eyes from that gap in the air and be able to enter the hearth in your soul where your loved one has awaited your return all the time. And I'd like to invite Barb now to come up and speak.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this celebration of Phil's life with us. My name is Barb, and I'm also one of Phil's older sisters. We come from a large blended family in North Vancouver, BC. Phil and I, Sean said, we were the youngest 2 out of 10 children. We shared the same mom and dad. There were 3 years between us, but they never made a difference to our sibling relationship. From as far back as I can remember, Phil was a curious, intelligent, and sensitive soul. He had a knack for discovering and researching some of the most obscure and darkest things. But he also had a gift for bringing light and humor to even the most difficult situations. This is what I'm remembering most fondly about Phil on a day like today. Phil was a talker, which means that many of you here will have had the wonderful experience of discussing anything and everything with him, which I know Jamie touched on. We all have had these discussions with Phil. From his fascination with Charles Manson, to his exploration of Jungian archetypes, there was little to no small talk, or what Tim Hill recently reminded me we used to call barbecue talk. Many of us will have spent hours exploring and listening to various musical genres and film soundtracks with Phil, as well as intensive analyses of these same films, as he always had a visual and oral aesthetic. He was an autodidact who learned everything best by reading and doing. He could talk for hours about a vast array of subjects, and so often his enthusiastic hand gestures and that distinctive boyish chuckle of his would pepper the conversation. That intellect and analytical mind were only matched by Phil's prodigious creativity. When we were small kids, he would often take out his old shoebox tape recorder. I think it may have belonged to our granddad. And he'd direct various family members in different plays he had concocted. And he also used his tape recorder to compose songs, encouraging others to write lyrics and to sing while he provided the percussion. As Phil headed into his teen years, his love of a good and interesting narrative evolved. He loved stories, and he loved film, and he especially loved music for films. When we were kids, I remember Phil cloistering himself in our basement for hours, recording the soundtrack and audio of the horror movie Halloween. He was probably 11 or 12 years old, and he was a huge fan of John Carpenter's directing, but of his composing in particular. I also think Jamie Lee Curtis, as Laurie in that movie, was his first celebrity crush. I wasn't going to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it because I'm up here. When he was recording Halloween, he was downstairs in the basement, and I remember the phone rang, and so I answered it, and it was for Phil. And so I used to bang on the floor, just phones for you. No sign of Phil. So then I went to the door that opened to the stairs, to the basement. Phil, phones for you. Still nothing. So I stomped down the stairs, knocked on the door, said, Phil, the phone is for you. He opens the door. He had a butcher knife in his hand. And he's like, don't interrupt my recording. And I was shocked, actually. I was like, oh, well maybe don't hold a butcher knife to my face. The phone is for you. So he went up and he took the phone call, and I don't know who it was. But I then concocted a plan of my own. I thought, okay, I think I'm not a vengeful person, but I think he maybe needs me to show him how much he's scared of me. So a couple minutes later, stomp on the floor, Phil, the phone's for you. Meanwhile, I had gone upstairs and gotten some makeup. I put some blue and purple eyeshadow around my eye. And I also got a little bit of ketchup so it looked like I had blood on my face. And I called him. I knew I was interrupting him again. Phil, the phone's for you. He came bounding up the stairs. I had shoes on and I knew he was going to swing the door open at the top of the stairs, which he did. And it hit my shoe, and I, using my great thespian skills, fell to the ground. Oh. He immediately was like, are you okay? Sean said he was so caring. He immediately came down to me and said, sorry. And I was like, I gotcha. So, I was always very proud of that. And I wasn't going to tell that story. Thank you for making me tell that story. Anyways, so Phil's love of music and stories, this is something that's part of our broader family life, and it was integral to Phil. It was part of his soul. He was always interested in your story, and he always had an interesting story of his own to share. I feel so fortunate to have been part of the early days when Phil started exploring electronic music, and he began to experiment with recording. At 13 years old, Phil was imploring me to not just he wanted me to love Frankie Goes to Hollywood, another guilty pleasure. And I just never got into them. I never liked them. This really irked Phil. He wanted me to like them, because generally we have mutual tastes in music. And this dispute actually led to a pretty pathetic physical altercation that ventured from our living room outside to our patio. We literally took our fisticuffs outside. And it lasted all of a minute and a half before the two of us no longer had the fortitude to fight due to our incessant laughter. We broke into hysterics. That was the only time I ever remember getting in a physical fight with Phil. And we never stayed angry at each other for very long. What I didn't get at that time was that it was Trevor Horn's production and remixes that Phil loved so much, not necessarily the band. And this is what Phil always found most impressive, the way a person could make and mix sounds to create something luscious and innovative and different, something that told a story and conveyed emotion, often without words or lyrics. He acquired a portable 4-track recorder at around 15 years old, and he played piano, guitar, and drums, and he would sometimes ask me to sing. I love music too, but Phil always paid attention to and was much more impressed by the production and engineering of the music. So it was around the same time, 15 years old, that he began collecting records, which everybody knows started into a lifelong hobby. He had about 2,000 of them. Mostly he started collecting The Cure around that time. He was really big into The Cure. And I remember all his talk of Japanese pressings and limited editions. And he ended up meeting or talking to a lot of his musical influences, including The Cure, when they played the Expo Theater in 1987. Phil ended up going out for a meal with the band, where he was able to chat music production with Robert Smith, lead singer of The Cure, and tell him that he was particularly blown away by the lighting during Snake Pit. Another charming anecdote from that evening was Phil trying to slip Robert Smith $15 for his steak dinner, to which Robert kindly told him he could put his money away. Dinner was on The Cure. We socialized a lot as teenagers and adults, and I'm so glad I got to spend time with Phil in places like Goa, in India, in the UK, in Ireland, where I lived for 20 years, and many other places. Phil loved India. I think the ever-present spirituality resonated with him. He was always searching for something, which I think he explores in depth on his album The Escapist that was released in 1998, on which the cover is a photograph that Phil took himself in Delhi, in India. I sang on a track on that album, but I didn't know the title of it until it was released. It seemed very symbolic to me 20 years ago, and still does today, that Phil titled that song, Stay Clean, in which my lyrics and singing had been completely layered and put through several effects. But the chorus, which Phil sings clearly, asks over and over, why can't I stay clean? The music is upbeat, but it also conveys a heaviness or a longing in its rhetorical question. It's a song where Phil lays bare his struggles and also his genuine confusion as to why he always felt the need to escape. I'm sure many of us talked with him about these struggles over the last 25 years. In fact, Phil's struggles are what gave him incredible insight, awareness, and compassion for others, including friends, family, and the people with whom he worked. His struggles were a small part in the varied and colorful landscape of his life. He was always the cute, charming, confident kid that Sean described. And he maintained that childlike curiosity and humor throughout his life. He loved creating, and he admired the works of other artists and creators. We spent hours watching and recording Soundproof in the 1980s. People remember it. A cable TV show that was filmed in the Shaw Studios in North Vancouver, and that introduced us to local and international independent music and bands. They played music videos. It was a precursor to Much Music, long before Much Music and MTV. And some of those musicians and members of bands are here today, or they've paid heartfelt tribute to Phil for his musical talent, his production skills, and his all-around awesomeness. The most perfect creation, however, that Phil was involved with was that of his 6-year-old daughter, Maura. I'm so grateful that when I found out that Phil and Joanna were expecting a baby in 2012, that I wrote them from Dublin, Ireland, where I lived for the last 2 decades, and I told them that I would plan our visit to Vancouver to coincide with the due date. Now, I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but I hoped that I would get there in time. And it ended up that I arrived the day before Joanna went into labor. My mom, my Aunt Christelle, and I headed to their house in the early hours of that August morning, and we were there when Maura arrived earthside, only a few short hours later. It was a truly amazing experience and an honor to be a part of Maura's birth in whatever small way we could. I remember snapping many pictures of Phil with his new daughter and seeing the pure, unadulterated joy on his face as he gazed at this beautiful little human. He took to fatherhood with great ease, helping with all things parenting, bathing, feeding, and most of all, playing with Maura. And Maura sums up the relationship much better than I ever could on the program for today, and with what her words were earlier. Phil and I were great friends and confidants, and like so many of you here, even though I lived several thousand miles away for so long, I could always pick up with Phil where we left off, as though no time had passed at all. Like Maura says, Phil is always with me. He may have temporarily lived in other cities and traveled and toured, but Vancouver is infused with Phil. This place is home. He's everywhere that we associate with him, and thankfully, we can visit him whenever we listen to his music. That and more were the two loves that brought him the most joy. I want to finish up by playing a piece of music by another band that was one of Phil's many musical influences. There was something about Talk Talk's Mark Hollis who also passed away in February, and Tim Freeze-Green's production that spoke to Phil as a young man and as an artist. He was 17 when the album Spirit of Eden was released in 1988, and he was inspired by Talk Talk's musical and technical genius. This song in particular was an emotive piece written by Mark Hollis after his own brother died from an overdose. It feels like the song transcends our earthly reality as Mark Hollis evokes or calls out to a spirit. Please feel free to stay in here and to sit with and to listen to this piece of music that to me is the embodiment of Phil. I love you. And I believe